Hello one and all, Jasper here, and I've shared my thoughts on Battle of the Bastards and why I dislike it. Twice, in fact. But is that really fair? After all, there is a battle in the show that is worse in every conceivable way. It has no redeeming qualities, and is one of the few instances where I can say with no hindsight whatsoever that I could have done a better job writing and directing it. I am, of course, talking about the Battle for Winterfell. Now, there are tons of videos that dissect the battle and go into just how stupid it is. The tactics put on display rival the intellectual capabilities of a koala. Any schmuck with zero knowledge of medieval warfare would be able to come up with something better. Because of its extensive coverage in that regard, I'm going to tackle this final battle in a different light and focus on probably its biggest issue. It's fucking boring. Listen, I'm not downplaying the importance of having good tactics in a battle such as this, but I will say that arguably what is more important is entertainment. Braveheart, Mongolian, and Narnia all have battles that lack even basic tactics, but at least those fights are entertaining to watch. You cannot say the same thing about the Battle for Winterfell. It is shit. So I'm going to go over changes I would make for the sake of entertainment, not just dogpiling on the tactics. The rule of cool wins in this video. So, what would I do? Well, for starters, turn on those fucking lights. I don't care if it's midnight and winter in this setting. I want to see what the fuck is going on. And you can justify how bright everything is by saying it comes from the same place as the music. From Winterfell, we can see the open plains all the way to the forest in the distance and the horde of the whites beginning to spew forth. Not in that DayZ mountain zombie way, but more like Last of Us 2. Yeah, I know that's also kind of shit, but hey, at least that battle was enjoyable. In front of the castle, we have the Dothraki and the Knights of the Vale ready to gallop forward into battle. Riding with them is pretty much any fighting character who is skilled in horseback. Jorah, Jaime, Theon, Jon Royce, and Brienne, for example, though Jon is noticeably not a part of it. Sansa, Arya, Grey Worm, and other characters are behind the walls, watching what is happening. The cavalry charges forward. The sounds of their hoofs are muffled by the snow, but they go forward nonetheless. As the two armies grow closer, the whites stop and form a line, locking arms and bracing for the impact. Charging through the disorganized group of zombies, well, that would be easy. But if enough bodies brace, even the heavy Knights of the Vale would falter. Yet they continue to charge. They don't stop, they don't falter. But moments before the clash, fire spews from the sky and torches the front of the whites that are braced. Jon and Dany are riding Drogon and Rhaegal, and we see the Knights of the Vale and Dothraki screamers ride through the fire of charred corpses, smashing through the hordes. This shit looks like the charge of the Rohirrim, as skulls are crushed under hoof and limbs are sent flying with sword and a rock. But it's still not enough. The horde is unending as they swarm out. Eventually the horses grow tired and are pulled down where rider and beast are torn limb from limb. They try to fall back, but it proves difficult as they're surrounded on all sides. Jon and Dany swoop down to assist their soldier in any form of retreat. Dany sees some Dothraki have been unhorsed and are surrounded by the dead. Dragonfire would incinerate them all, so she chooses, out of desire to save them, to land, having Drogon use teeth and claw instead. It works, kind of, but this was a foolish choice. The whites begin to swarm Drogon, climbing up to attack Dany. Drogon shakes its body, crying out as the small weapons of the zombies find the nooks and crannies in its scale to harm him. Jon tries to fly down to help her, but that's when the Night King reveals himself, pulling off the old sneaky Vhagar trick and crashing against Jon with zombie Viserion, having the two beasts engage in the open sky. The horde is too much as Drogon takes to the sky, still shaking his body, which results in Dany falling from his back and landing with a thud. The snow is the only reason she survives and is able to stand up. Drogon also soon crashes to the ground in the distance. The injury and weight of the whites proves too much, and he must now deal with the horde surrounding him. He lashes out like a wild beast, fire spewing in all directions, claws, tail, and teeth thrashing about. The Dothraki that Dany saved surround and protect her from the whites that are trying to get to the Mother of Dragons. So far she is safe, until she hears the sound of shattering glass, or should I say, steel, as a White Walker dispatches the nearest Dothraki warrior and approaches her. It seems to be the end for her, until we hear a bear-like roar, Khaleesi! Jorah Mormont has arrived, wielding Heartsbane and charges on horseback. The White Walker sidesteps this charge and slashes the horse's legs. Jorah rolls off and hits a badass pose, standing up ready to engage and protect his queen. Cut back to Jon Snow in his sky battle against the Night King, fire spewing from both dragons, Jon reacting as he feels the heat of the blaze lick against him, but he's still stern and emotionless. Rhaegal takes a massive bite from his dead brother's face, but it takes more than dragon teeth to claim victory against this monster. Viserion returns the favor and crunches on Rhaegal's neck, though the force is weaker due to him now missing half his jaw. They begin to plummet down as they can't fly like this. The ground approaches at them at incredible speeds. Jon holds on, hoping that Rhaegal can pull something off, and he does. Wrenching its body around so that Viserion is below, it's pressed its clawed feet against his dead brother and shoves with all his strength. This propels Viserion to the ground at greater force and lessens the crash landing for Rhaegal. Kind of like double jumping before you hit the ground and take fall damage in a video game. But still, Rhaegal crashes with a decent force and is injured, causing Jon to lose his grip and fall, landing in the snow with a sizable puff. Getting himself up, Jon runs to check on Rhaegal to see if he is alright, only to see the final moments of the dragon's life leave its body. He turns to see the Night King is standing not far from where he is, and charges. When their weapons clash, we cut back to Jorah dueling the White Walker, who is getting the absolute shit beat out of him. The physical power of a White Walker is on full display as he is manhandling Jorah. Remember when Jon fought one at Hardhome? Similar situation to this and how it goes. He can't expect anyone to help him. It takes everything the Dothraki have to keep the Whites at bay. He's on his own. Some more cool choreograph happens, which, very satisfyingly, allows Jorah to get victory by the skin of his teeth, striking the White Walker down. And what happens next is kind of like when Sauron had his fingers chopped off in the movie, and we see the army just crumble to the ground, dissipating. Same thing as the entire army of Cropus just shatters to dust. Humanity begins to celebrate. The Night King senses this, and kind of Bruce Lee one-inch punches Jon Snow in their fight, sending the bastard flying several yards away. He's gasping for air as the wind was knocked out of him, yet the Night King instead just walks over to see his army reduced to dust. And here we get his first line. That's one down. Can you take care of the 11 others? See, like, it's a double meaning. Instead of other 11, you reverse it because they're called the others? I'm a fucking genius. Another swarm bursts through the tree lines, and the Night King holds his hand out. Not only is the second wave attacking, but the fresh dead of the engagement begin to rise up, including Rhaegal, who begins to shuffle behind Jon. Rhaegal, fighting for the Night King, would be the end of the war and battle, and so Jon acts quickly, dashing over and with his sword Longclaw plunges it into Rhaegal's heart, and because of some magic bullshit, this prevents the beast from rising. Jon looks back at the Night King, who is giving him that same fucking smirk he gave Dany in the original fight. Jon speaks to the Night King. You can talk? And honestly, because of that smirk, I want to give the Night King a personality to match it. A cocky, cold-hearted, smartass who responds with, I do. Now shall we talk and see if you can convince me to give up my plans that have been in place for thousands of years while my army slaughters yours, or shall we get back to our fight? Wordlessly, Jon takes up Longcon. Stupid? Yes, but fuck you, I like it. We cut back to the side battle as Jorah and Dany stare at the approaching horde. Dothraki and Knights of the Vale all around them are running back to Winterfell on both foot and horseback. One Dothraki rider stops and Jorah grabs Dany and forces her onto the steed. She protests, but can do nothing as she's taken back to Winterfell. She looks back and sees Jorah continue to fight until finally being overwhelmed and killed. We cut to the walls now as Sansa gives command for the trebuchets that are safely behind castle walls and not placed out in front like a retard was let loose. Rocks drenched in oil are set ablaze and loosed at the enemy, arching across the sky like shooting stars and smashing against the horde as the survivors retreat into the castle. Yet not all can make it. Grey Worm pulls the lever and lights the trench with a torch, and we see the fire scorch across the barrier. Some men fling themselves through the fire to get away from the whites in hopes of safety. Some are lucky and roll into the snow as they try and drench the flames on their cloaks. Others, however, are unable to climb over the massive bonfire structure and are burned alive, and even more stop in front of the flames, only to end up butchered by whites. For a moment, the whites fling themselves into the fire to get past, but their bodies react to it like they're drenched in oil, erupting into flames in mere seconds. They stop, and instead of just looking at the whites from the walls, the archers decide to let loose all the arrows they got. Hundreds of whites are falling with every single volley. This is until we see a White Walker, out of range of the archers, hold out his hand, and a massive gust of snow-cold wind bellows across the blazing trenches, snuffing them out. With no fire, the whites begin to charge through the barriers to continue their attack, and the defenders are forced to make a desperate act. Melisandre, protected by Unsullied, sally out and places her hand on the wooden barrier, setting it ablaze once again. Far more than before, this isn't some pathetic bonfire you and your chaps can set up. This is some Rugin Jaka level fire. From here you get kind of a battle of magic bullshit that I pictured kind of like Jean Grey with her physical fight against Xavier. The cold, snowing wind tangling with the erupting fire. Melisandre gets a bloody nose because that's how all the best psychic fights do things to show they're exerting themselves. The best part? She wins. Able to keep the fires burning as the White Walker puts too much into the struggle and shatters. It's a big, hopeful moment of the battle, until two White Walkers hold out their hand and instantly snuff out the flame, and the blast of cold magic waves into Melisandre and the Unsullied by her side, freezing them all solid. A giant then smashes through the barrier and stomps through them, shattering them to pieces. This isn't the only giant. Several more come blasting through the barrier with whites hanging on their body as they approach the walls of Winterfell, and use themselves as makeshift siege towers, letting the smaller zombies climb up their bodies to scale the walls easier. They can even just throw some of them over the walls for more chaos. Now, it's time for the action gauntlet, cause of course we have a giant bust through the castle doors and have 10 whites walk in ready for some action. But who gets to face against them and take them down? We have some obvious picks. Jaime and Brienne, maybe even facing off against two together. Sandor and Beric could both dispatch one. Arya as well. Fuck, I'm already running out of characters, and I still have 5 left to get rid of. Maybe Sam? There's something about this fat fuck being responsible for 2 White Walker deaths that makes me giggle. Lyanna Mormont killing a giant was really dumb, so why not ramp it up to 100 with a White Walker? It might even trick us into thinking that Bella Ramsey is a good actor again. Maybe Tyrion and Sansa can get a kill? I could see a White Walker making his way to where the women and children are hiding and these two stand up to protect them, and maybe even get to kill? And to be clear, they're not hiding in the Winterfell crypts. That was way too dumb. Maybe we can give Jorah another kill. Okay, hear me out. How cool, not dumb, cool, does it sound that Dany is trapped by a White Walker who out of sick glee sends an undead Jorah to kill her? But the power of pedo love is too strong, so he turns against the White Walker, striking them down with Heartsbane and instantly killing themselves because of it. Yeah, it's probably a bit much, so we could just have Dany girlboss it, or maybe Grey Worm saves her from the undead Jorah by killing the White Walker. Oh, and this should be obvious, but I want to make it clear, those who died in the original episode still die. So yeah, Barrack kills a White Walker, but maybe another swoops in and takes him out, or he succumbs to his wounds after the fight, or gets mollywopped by a whole bunch of whites. Alright, that's all but one left, and I'm saving him for a special moment. You see, this last White Walker will be the one to approach Bran. He will be the one to kill Theon and be so close to taking out the bland, monotone cripple. But before he does it, he shatters. Why? Well, we have to jump back to Jon to get that answer. You see, I didn't forget about Jon. I just didn't want to fill this video up with useless moments of me saying, at this point we check back to Jon getting his ass kicked. Anyway, Jon has lost. The Night King is holding him by his throat, ready to snap his neck like a twig, until a massive force slams into the ground. It's Drogon, letting out a massive roar. Jon, still being choked, lets out one word. Dracarys. Drogon follows the command and shoots flame from its mouth. The Night King tosses Jon away and holds out his hands to block the flame with magic. We see Jon get smothered in fire, and he screams, but it's instantly silent. With Jon now burnt to a crisp, Drogon eventually stops shooting flames, and we see the Night King standing perfectly unburnt, undamaged. He begins to pull out his ice spear to yeet at Drogon, until a naked Jon Snow appears behind him with Longclaw and cuts him down, saving the world, cause turns out Jon is also fireproof like Daenerys. Was this hinted at all? And is it actually a retcon because we see Jon burn his hand when he grabbed the lantern from Jorah Mormont? Yes, but counterpoint, fuck you. This would make all of the drunks at the bar start jumping and screaming, ergo it's good writing. The day is saved and the siege of Winterfell is over with the good guys winning. So, is this good? Fuck no. This is absolute dog shit. But hey, I can say that both subjectively and objectively, it's far better than the shit stain we got in the actual show. Let me know what things you would want to do or change either to my script or the original episode. Until then, stay safe, and I hope you all have a wonderful night.